Hello everyone, and today is the Late Night Thoughts. It is a series where I share my thoughts and opinions, and it is like a podcast-like video already. Not much special effects or anything here. Just me talking about the topic of the day. And the topic of the day is, which is a better portrait camera, the R5 or the A1? And I want to share with you my thoughts in this video here. I'm not going to show you a lot of images in this video really, maybe none at all. But I will put on my links here that you can go and look at my previous review on them to better understand what I'm talking about. Now, firstly, both this camera is owned by me. My wife uses the R5 for her job. A1 is something I use very often these days. But I kind of use the R5 for the 9 months when I own it before I hand over to my wife. And this is something I've been using the last 3 months, because I don't have the R5 anymore. But that said, I own both of these cameras, so whatever I say today is really based on my thoughts, opinions, and of course, usages in the last few months itself. Now, I'm very lucky to have both of these, so if you have any questions on them, you can just ask me too. But if not, you want to know which I think is a better portrait camera, carry on listening to this video itself. Listening, because it's mainly me talking. Now, firstly, the Canon R5, the Sony A1, which is a better portrait camera, right? First comparison is image quality, and I will tell you that both of them, no difference. Essentially, 5 megapixel difference isn't a lot. Dynamic range-wise, very little difference. In fact, take a look at one of my Sony review videos. I did say that the dynamic range of this camera really is on par with the rest. And if you take a look at my R5 video, I did say that the R5 image quality, dynamic range is on par with the rest too. So pretty much image quality-wise, both of them are very, very similar. Then next, when it comes to autofocus, and this is where things get a bit tricky, but I would say as the Canon wins this. Now, the Sony does autofocus faster, quicker, and very accurate also if you are looking at further distances. But when it comes to indoors and shooting portraitures especially, I find the Canon R5 more reliable. And this is something I talked about in the video before. Take a look at the link up here. What happens is that the Sony AF box is bigger, and it tends to just focus on anything inside the AF box itself. That can mean a strand of hair, lashes, side of the face if you're doing side portraiture. It's just a lot more irritating to use the Sony itself. The Canon AF box is smaller, and not only that, it tends to prioritize the center of the box better. So when you are, for example, doing IAF indoors, the Canon tend to hit the eyes a lot more often than the Sony, given a f2.8 lens or f2 lens. Now, some of you say, maybe this is the depth of field, so shallow and stuff, right? But if you're doing with available lighting, f2.8 and f2 really is the amount you want to go, the aperture you want to go when you're shooting indoor portraitures. As such, sometimes the R5 Jazz is a lot more pleasant to use. The autofocus is just more reliable indoors when it comes to focusing on the eye of the subject itself. So, not so much about the speed, nor the accuracy, it's the size of the AF box. And for autofocus itself, as such, Canon wins this category itself. And then the next is about lenses. And I would say as the best 85mm lens goes to the RF 85mm here. The best 35mm lens goes to the Sony 35 here. And the best 135mm lens goes to the Sony 135mm here. I don't have the lens here. I returned it. But yes, so depends on which range you like. Both system has really good lenses. Sony has a lot of good 1.8 lenses too. The 50, the 85s are really good on the Sony itself. While the Canon has a very nice 35mm and also a pretty decent 85mm. Not as good as the Sony, but pretty decent. But not only that, the Canon has the whole EF range behind, while the Sony has the whole FE range plus Sigma lenses. So between both of these systems when it comes to lenses, I would say it's a draw. Either system will fulfill your needs, unless you are very specific, you want the 85mm, then the Canon 85 1.2 here is the best. Or you really specifically want the 135mm, then the Sony 135mm is the better one. But if you want a 200mm, go for the Canon. The 200mm f2 on the Canon is really affordable now. 4,000 Sing dollars or 4,500 Sing dollars, and you get a 200mm, and it works perfectly well on the R5. That is for lenses. Now, the next thing I'll talk about is latency, or should I say how fast the camera reacts when you want to take a photo itself. And this is also something I talk about it. I had the whole comparison on latency here. Take a look at the link here. And I'll tell you that the Sony is a better one. And why is latency important in portraiture is because when you want to do hair flicks, movement, jump shots, you can't burst the flash really. You can't burst. I mean, 1/4 of a power, half the power, how are you going to burst, right? Or you shoot outdoors, you can't burst high-speed sync. Really, high-speed sync and burst just don't come together very well. As such, the Sony, when it comes to capturing that moment, is a lot easier. Its latency is just lower, and it is noticeably lower than the Canon itself. So that's something to note. So when it comes to latency, the Sony wins this. And then usability out in the field. So when you do portraiture, you not only do at eye level, you can also do at waist level. I mean, it's quite common for medium formats. Or you can even do at ground level if you want to have certain effects, especially reflection of the water on the floor, or you want to shoot at a beach and then you want to see the sky behind the subject itself with a relatively long lens, so you still get an upright subject. In this case, the Canon with the flip-out screen is just a lot more usable out in the field. I'm talking about usability in the field, very practical thing, you know. With the Sony itself, oh no, if you're going to shoot portrait mode, you're going to lie on the floor, get yourself wet and dirty and sandy. So yes, the Canon wins this for usability. Now, Canon has that flippy screen, but Sony also has it on the A7S III. Why did they revert back to this flippy screen here and not the A7S III one? I do not know. Maybe they think portrait photographers will buy the A1 a lot more. Oh, not wrong, not portrait, landscape photographers, yes. People who need that landscape flip itself. So then the next one is price. And this is touchy. The Canon is just cheaper and significantly cheaper. A good 33% cheaper than the Sony. Or should I say the Sony costs 50% more than the Canon. So for the price of an A1, you can buy a R5 with a lens, you know. So price-wise, the R5 is a better price. So all in all, the Canon to me is a better camera between both of these as a portrait camera. For the purpose of portraiture, remember portraiture. If you talk about events photography, you talk about landscape, you talk about sports, the Sony may win in some of these categories because especially for sports and events, the Sony does AF quicker, more responsive, more important for such things. And if you're talking about events, well, depending on what kind of events you're doing, the Canon may be better in some, but most likely Sony will win most of them. So in terms of portraiture, however, I'll say the R5 is a better choice. Top-down shot, bottom-up shot, you know, usability. Then you have your better AF system with a smaller AF box. To me, for purpose of portrait, it's just better. You know, this is how I felt about the Canon system itself. Now, some of you may ask, what if I switch this to the A7R4 instead to compare the Canon? I'll say the Canon will still win, but in a different category-wise, because the image quality, it will be unfair to say that A7R4 has the same image quality as R5 because that megapixel difference is significant. However, when it comes to latency, when it comes to general speed, when it comes to performance in the field, and when it comes to usability, Canon will still win the A7R4. And in terms of pricing, yes, the A7R4 is cheaper, but you know, the Canon itself will have won on many other merits itself. So yeah, if you ask me, the R5 is a fantastic piece of camera for the purpose of portraiture itself. I think in the Sony range, the A7R4 is a more, I would say, a sensible camera. But still, you know, if you ask me to recommend both of them, even with a higher price, I would think that the R5 is a better camera for the purpose of portraiture. For the flippy screen, better AF system. And that's about it for today, really. As I say, this is more like a podcast-like late night thoughts video. So if you're interested in more of this camera, you can put down in the comments below. If you're interested in my Fujifilm cameras, put down in the comments below. If you are interested in me in comparing this camera some other ways, or you want a more interactive comparison, put down in the comments below too. Because today is just a late night thoughts. I just want to share you my ideas and my thoughts of both of this camera, and which I think is a better portrait camera itself. And that's about it for today. I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.